Yo, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? Good to see you again. Welcome back to Cards in Hand. This is episode 8, and we are joined for the first time, actually, first ever third guest on the podcast by the man, the myth, the legend, Jackson Hoang. And pleasure to have you, bro.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm
Yeah, thanks so
excited to
much for
be on
coming on,
here.
Jackson.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, I was. We were super excited because it was funny. The second day of the event, I ended up running into you, and I was like, "Yo, no shot! Like, this is really cool." I know you're in the. I think you were at that point in top 32.
Yeah, it was like very high stakes. I think probably top 32, top 16, one of those
Yeah,
things. And then you just came up, like,
yeah,
tapped me on the shoulder. I was like, oh, wow, I didn't expect to see you there. Kind of like caught me so off guard.
yeah. No, it was super cool because I mean, you and I ended up meeting initially through playing a. It was either in a treasure cup or a regional,
Mhm.
and we ended up hitting it off in the DMs after I was apologizing for.
It was like so unnecessary. But like, yeah, after that, I was like, wow, this guy's pretty cool. Like,
Ian,
Yeah.
check out his stream.
what did you do, Ian?
Dude, I don't even want to talk about it. So,
Oh no,
it was
not
my first ever online event, and this was hilarious. But I was playing Zorro, and I happened to be first game of the day up against my man Jackson here,
wow. Okay,
and I'm a little nervous, very nervous.
sure.
I'm streaming it, and Jackson actually made a blunder, which is who even knew that was possible? I didn't.
It happens all the
So
Yeah,
you're
time.
telling
yeah.
me he's human after all, huh?
I thought he was cyborg, but
Yeah.
no, we he ends up making like a mistake, and he was like, "Oh shoot, I just attacked for 4, instead of like attaching like 2 Dawn or something." He was like, I don't. What do you want to do?" And I was like, "Well," and I was really nervous, and I was like, and like I didn't know exactly what to do in the situation. I was like, I guess you already attacked. Like I said it like a question.
You were
I
that
rule
guy, Ian.
sharked him.
Oh my
I
gosh.
was the
Shut it
worst.
down. Shut it down. Shut it down, peeps.
I do
In the
think it was
podcast right
justified
here.
though. Like it, high stakes, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you knew me at the
I
time, but
didn't. I had no idea who you were.
yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
afterwards, I wasn't even mad. But he reached out to me with like a DM, like a great apology, and it
Yeah.
was just like, I will want this game anyway. But he reached out to me, and he was like, "Oh, like that's not me," that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
like him kind of reaching out to me showed me that that's just not just words. Like he actually meant that, and then I thought it was really cool. And after that, I started checking out your stream more, and I'm like, okay, this guy's just a really good guy. It was just like a one momentary lapse, like,
Dude,
and like, yeah, it was just
Jackson may forgive you, Ian, but I sure as hell don't.
you
No,
know,
sir.
respect.
Nah.
I respect that.
No.
I
Hey, but
respect
hey,
that.
I let someone in national slide and it cost me the game. So you know what? Lesson learned. Lesson learned on that.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, to me though, it felt like the craziest mistake because I was like, "Oh my god, why am I even doing this?" It was something so small. And like I just felt terrible afterwards and I DM'd him and then I sat there and thinking to myself, I don't even know who this guy is, right? And later on somebody told me, they were like, "Hey, by the way, did you know that your round 1 was against like the guy that just got top 8 and has like 2 serial Luffy's?" And I was like,
Like
"Shut up." I
the
was
Michael
like,
Jordan
"Dude."
of One Piece in A. Like,
I was
yeah.
like, I'm the most embarrassed I've ever been in my entire life. But yeah, that was a great way to meet, and honestly, it ended up blooming into a pretty cool friendship. So I'm pretty stoked about it.
It's a
But
great icebreaker right off the bat.
yeah,
yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Something great came out of it.
and and you know what? Speaking of all of those events, like the one that we played in, but multiple that led up to this North American Nationals. I mean, just give everybody that's listening a little bit of a breakdown of what you have for as far as tops and placements in some of these events.
Yeah. So I don't know the exact results, but I usually quantify them by like serial loopies or serial cards in general.
It's
So
a
I
good way.
have 7 serial loopies. And like that kind of like I go for those instead of topping tournaments. So that's why you see all my tops. Most of them are treasure cups because it's top 8 to get a serial loopy as opposed to regionals, which are top
Right.
2. This is
Yeah.
when I start to kind of troll. I play like Nami, I play like Black, Yellow, Big Mom, and I kind of just take it easy. And that kind of helps me get refreshed to play like some hardcore decks for like the treasure cup. So I still try to have fun. So yeah, I don't know how many tops there are. If you go by like a ranking system, like a limitless, right now I think I'm like probably top 10 or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, One Piece was like my second card game ever. My first one was
Oh.
Digimon like 3 years ago. Yeah, I grew up not having money for card games. I kind of just played whatever was free, so like mobile games a
Bro.
lot.
I can relate.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess before card games, I played mobile games competitively for just a little bit.
Yeah. Wait, if you don't mind me asking, what kind of mobile games?
It's not like Hearthstone or anything. It's Clash. Do you guys know Supercell that made a Clash of Clans, a Clash
Yeah,
Royale, that
yeah,
kind of
mhm.
games?
Yeah.
I was competitive in Clash Royale for a little bit. Before they had a real big competitive scene, like now or like a couple years ago, I see like big esports orgs like 100 Thieves or Cloud9 in
Yeah.
it. I was before that, before the money got in there. So, but they did fly me to like Canada or like Los Angeles for some tournaments, and like I'm on some YouTube videos.
Dude,
Nice.
that's awesome.
I was gonna guess Hearthstone, but yeah, I mean, I could see it too. It's funny
Yeah.
because Jackson measures his success by serialized Luffy's, and I measure mine by local winter cards. We are not the same.
I mean, you definitely probably have a lot more local winter cards than me.
Wait, oh, you know what? That's actually that's so funny because FTC, same.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
Can relate. I'm over here
Yeah.
like, yeah, dude, I got like, 30 winter cards. I'm pretty.
Yeah, let me fan them out, bro. Look at me.
But no, that's really interesting. That you bring that up because oh shoot, what was dang, I lost my train of thought. But it was about Jackson, I believe that you don't play a lot of you don't play at locals very much, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I'm kind of like it's kind of for a weird reason. I just think that the time I spend traveling to locals, like 15, 20, 30 minutes, I can just spend watching like a video or doing it online. So I just saw it as like inefficient for what I like to do.
Yeah.
And like I'm also a couch potato, so I don't like the in between rounds where you're waiting for rounds to finish and I'm not doing anything. I feel like that like kind of it irked me that I was doing nothing in that time.
Yeah, it could be better spent either watching a video, play testing against somebody, playing on the
Yeah.
sim, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, like that downtime, like I'm always trying to fill it. Like if you notice before like major tournaments, I'm still watching other regions. Like during this weekend, I was watching the Australia regional
Mhm.
or Australia finals
Yeah.
in between rounds or beginning of the tournament just because I want to fill that empty void.
Yeah. And honestly, I think it was really interesting. If I'm not mistaken, I know that Latin America, the winner was Purple Luffy. What was Australia also Purple Luffy? I think Oceania was Purple Luffy, right?
It was also Purple Luffy
Yeah.
as well.
Which is, I think
It was
it's,
the one that didn't have Magellan, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I love that list.
yeah,
Yeah, it's a good list.
yeah.
No Magellan.
It's so
A couple of
cool.
my friends were on it as well because the top placing Purple Luffy had it as well. And like I was trying to cope Purple Luffy before I played Sakazuki, and I was like, Miss All Sunday is like a really great card. I just
Yeah.
didn't know where to fit it. I wasn't ballsy enough to cut Magellan like the European guy was.
Yeah.
That's so neat. I just love the fact that we've had, multiple of these championship events already, and we've seen so many different topping lists. And I don't know. I just think that as far as North America is concerned, it was really interesting to see a top 4 that ended up having every single deck was different. Like I don't think there was any other event that had that. Am I incorrect in saying that?
No, I think that was like the biggest surprise.
Yeah.
The top 4 was all different decks.
Yeah.
Everybody loved that. I think that's probably the best part of Nationals, that the top 4 was all different decks.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was awesome to see for sure.
And the fact that Zoro had wins over Anel.
Hey,
What?
that Zoro tech's real, man. Actually, one of my homies, Nick, plays top 16 with Zoro, and I'm gonna be doing a deck profile for him over the weekend. So there was definitely some tech choices that came out once they found out that NL was like almost unbeatable with Zoro. They started to tech some things around, and it's nice to see that build kind of evolved to where it gives Zoro a chance against NL. I still think it's a pretty hard matchup. But at least Zoro's got a good chance, much better chance than the deck list they were running before that.
Yeah, I don't know. To me personally, I remember trying Zoro into an NL, and I said, how? How do you actually win this match?
Right.
Yeah, the slow bleed is like something I never want to be part of. So I never want to have like a matchup where the guy just infinitely stalls me out.
Yeah, it's horrific.
So speaking of Jackson, like what is it that made you go with Sokka? What was it about the deck that gave you the confidence to say, I'm taking this deck to nationals and I feel good about it?
Yeah, so going into nationals, you had 2 choices really if you wanted to do really well. Either bring Sakazuki or bring a deck that beats Sakazuki.
Mhm.
And you obviously rather do Sakazuki than bring a deck that counters it. The only reason you wouldn't want to is you're not confident in whether you can outplay the mirror or like learn the deck quick enough. So it was kind of like an ego thing. I was kind of like, if I don't think I can be like the best Sakazuki player, then I don't think that I'm the best player. So I'm like, okay, I'll bring Sakazuki just because I want to prove that I can bring the best deck and beat people in the mirrors and that kind of thing. So very early on, like basically since OP5 came out, I told all my friends that competitively, like if you guys are like thinking about what deck to play, just play Sakazuki. Like I tested everything else. I tested yellow, purple, everything, and Sakazuki it just came back to Sakazuki being the most consistent and the best deck to bring.
Man.
Yeah, I mean that makes perfect sense. Now I'm curious. I know you had a lot of success with Red Green Law. There are two different types of decks in terms of how they play. And one, Red Green Law can be somewhat aggro, whereas like Sokka's a little bit more controlly. However, there feels like there's a little bit more similarities than once you kind of peel back the layers. They're both 4 life. They both go down to 2 life pretty quickly. Their sequencing can be a little bit different than all other decks. Sometimes you just brick your hand and you're just kind of like you feel like you're just sitting there. How much would
That's
you
me.
say being successful with Red Green Law helped with Sakazuki, or did it at all? Was there any kind of like, did you feel any type of similarity between the two decks?
Yeah, I would say honestly, the Red Green Gall experience definitely helped me. I was probably no more for Zoro as
Zoro,
well,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I think that both those two decks fit Sakazuki. So Red Green Law, like you said, sequencing, the aggroness, and then the kind of like low to the ground, like your boss monster is like a 5 cost, which is like Sakazuki, where your boss monsters are like 4 costs. Zoro is like more of the board control style where you're reducing things and you're KOing things and a lot of like math, like but instead of you're subtracting like power like thousands, you're subtracting costs in Sakazuki.
Sure.
So I think Sakazuki is the perfect deck for me because it combined both of those, and I had experience with both of those, and it just felt like a match made in heaven. And yeah, definitely the experience, like you said, the sequencing of Law and then the math with Zoro combined into one made Sakazuki like the perfect deck for me.
Dude, I couldn't agree more. I played Zoro throughout a lot of the OPO, well, OPO 1 to start, but a lot of OPO 3 as well because I couldn't really find a list that felt like home for me. So I went and reverted back to Zoro. But I loved Smoker in OPO 2. That was my deck. Like I knew that I was losing to red, but I didn't care. I was like,
we paid the price. We beat Whitebeard. We beat Whitebeard.
Yes, we did.
Okay, we
Beat
got
one of
one
the red
red
decks.
deck
Yes,
could
we
beat.
did.
That was it. Yeah.
But it was just so fun being able to control the board through on play effects versus maybe a more of a wider board presence, and that was where I felt like I loved the idea of kind of combining some of those aspects into Sakazuki just being this all around like fantastic removal, but being able to hold a your own board and I couldn't agree more with you on, like if you were going to try and like I like the way that you worded it. You said if you're going to try and win nationals, either play Sakazuki or play a deck that beats Sakazuki. I think that's just a fantastic. I didn't even consider wording it that way. That's just a great way of wording it. Like and you know what? Speaking of which, what would you say is your worst matchup that you experienced in some of those, maybe some of those games or maybe even in play testing that you were like, man, this is not what I want to play against as Sakazuki.
So if you were to ask me before the tournament, I would have said Zoro.
Okay.
That's one matchup that I played on both sides of. As a Zoro player, I feel so in control and I can really take games off Sakazuki pretty consistently. And as the opposite, I had to work really hard in order to not get blown up by Zoro.
Yeah.
But after the tournament, I would say now that it's the top 4 list, they Red Purple Luffy. So Victor was top 4 of it. He was one of my friends. We played Teslas on Friday, and then he just asked me if I wanted to run some games. And I was like, okay. I thought he'd be playing like Purple Luffy, which is what he played, or Nami, which is what I know him for. But he brought out this Red Purple Luffy, so I'm like, okay, cool. Like I get to play something different, and he cooked me. Like I think we played 6 games, and I won one time, and the one time was because of a misplay.
Yeesh.
And then after the game, he told me like, yeah, I like cooked this deck to beat Sakazuki, and I'm like, it worked.
Yeah.
So when I saw him made top 64, I was praying that he was on the opposite side of the bracket, because I did not want to go against his deck.
Yeah.
And then we kept. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No. I don't mean to interrupt. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
After every round, like top 64, top 32, I saw him kept getting closer and closer to me.
Oh no!
And like I would ask him what his matchups were, and he's like, "Oh, I just beat Sakazuki." And then after another round, "Oh, I just beat Sakazuki again." So he beat 4 in a row before he reached to me. And then we had to play each other in the semifinals. I was like, wow, if he was in the opposite side of bracket, I could at least play him in the finals. And if I lose then, I don't care.
Yeah.
So that was the deck I was most scared of. And luckily it was streamed because it was such a great match. It came down literally to game 3. Last life needed to be a 1K counter for me, and I got there. And I can't wait to rewatch that game on stream because it was crazy.
Yeah.
That was the deck list that actually had Fire Fist in it, right?
I think so.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, like, how much more anti-Sakazuki can you get than taking in Fire Fist?
Oh,
to a
it was
red purple Luffy
everywhere.
build?
It was like Fire Fist, 6-cost King.
Mhm.
Like there's so many anti-Sakazuki techs, and
Yeah.
it was a scary deck for sure.
I loved King. I literally tried King out so many times, but I do obviously like I know my place in the One Piece world. Like I know that, you know, when people are running a deck and I try it out and I'm like, man, no, I don't know. Maybe this guy's crazy. I can't seem to figure it out. It's not because they're crazy. It's because there's like a very clear skill difference. And it was very funny because I was looking at your Sakazuki list and I was like, no shot. That is 1 card difference from mine. And and I was talking to my stream and you were there for this. I was like, dude, what? I'm 1 card difference from Jackson. I was like, obviously, you know, like I got it. Like I figured out how to build a deck, and they were like, yeah, but you suck. And I was like, oh man,
Oh,
dang.
damn.
I was like, dang.
Player diff,
you
bro.
know,
Player
and
diff.
they're not wrong. They're not
Yeah,
wrong. I was
fair.
like, I still got to figure out the deck, dude. Like,
Yeah,
oof.
it's crazy. I think everybody's Sakazuki deck ends up looking like 1 or 2 cards different. There was literally one other top 16 person who played Sakazuki who had the exact same 50 cards as me. So
Oh,
it's
wow.
crazy how they end up looking the same.
Yeah.
Speaking of like some of those tech choices, I saw you run 3 Kuzan, which I think a lot of people run 2. I have seen some builds with 3. How do you like? Is the idea behind the 3rd Kuzan is like if it sticks, it just is an amazing card, or you know if they do remove it, then they've had to spend a lot of resources in order to remove it. What's the thought behind that 3rd Sakazuki, or excuse me, 3rd Kuzan?
Yeah, so I initially had that as my yellow tech spot. So I had 9-cost Mihawk in there because 9-cost Mihawk is really great into yellow. But as I found out in testing, Mihawk is great into Enel, but not into Katakuri. If you're playing it into Katakuri, I don't think you're just delaying the game. Like you're a big body, but they're gonna play 10-cost Lin. So I found that 9-cost Mihawk wasn't great for both yellow matchups. Kuzan. It's a spot that I ended up there because Kuzan's great into both matchups. It's also great in the mirror and it helps consistency. And yeah, I just found that like if you saw Kuzan at the right time against yellow, he just carries the matchup for you. So that's why I added him here.
Dude.
Makes sense. And, I mean, just the card draw alone too is a really nice bonus when you play him too.
My favorite play is like right before their 9 or 10 dawn turn, you just drop 2 Kuzans. Like you got to be healthy at that point, but you know, as long as they don't have like the widest board, you know, and you have maybe like 2, 3 life, something like that, you just drop double Kuzan, and they're like, oh.
Or Kuzan Sabo is a great play too.
Yeah, Kuzan Sabo.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
you know,
which was another thing. Sabo was on one of it.
I was about to say that. Yeah,
man, Sabo is such a like maybe I'm overvaluing the card a little bit too much because there was a time where I was almost talking myself into 3 Sabos, which is like it feels excessive. It feels excessive, but again, it's the hand filtering and it's the non-KO where it's like you've got yellow that has Gadatsu and Thunderbolt. You've got purple Luffy that has Pauly and Kaido. You've got Sakazuki, which is all this KO, and it feels like that effect would be really strong in this current meta. Did you feel comfortable with just one Sabo the entire time?
Yeah, it hurt. Honestly, Sabo would have been my 51st card if I was allowed one more card.
Yeah.
I initially had Sabo and Mancherry 2-1 split, like the other way around, where I won one Mancherry, but I found Mancherry much more important.
Yeah.
And Sabo, if I discard it, I can draw it early and discard it early because I can just recur it. But yeah, Sabo would be the next card I would add if I found some space. And yeah, like you said, it's great into yellow. And like I can't say much except I wish I could play it, but I just couldn't find space for it. Even now, I'm trying to find space for it, but I really can't.
So that was actually something that I had like the exact same kind of question of was the one of Sabo, because I felt like that for me was the most interesting choice. And I wanted to ask, like, and you said you can't find space, so that's why I wanted to kind of pick your brain on this. So you wouldn't consider maybe dropping like an Ice Age to 1, or maybe even like a Borsalino blocker to 3? Because I was like, I respect it and I'm not questioning it, because obviously you crushed, man. You got second place, crushed everything, like the competition. I was like, dude, you obviously know what you're talking about. But that was the only card that I was like, wow, not two? What?
Yeah, I did try cutting down to one Ice Age because I'm like, I don't really need this. Like, if I play my cards right, I should be able to have enough production for it.
Yeah.
Big mistake. I think you need at least two. Like, that card
Interesting.
is my get out of jail free pass. If I'm ever falling behind, I can just play that or have that card in my hand and play it out and like catch up. So having two
True.
Ice Age is like the minimum I would ever play. And as for Cross Barcelona as well, I know a lot of people run three. But honestly, I love that card too much. When like I want to see when I'm on like my 4 down turn. Yeah, like
Same.
if I don't see him my 4 down turn, I can fall behind very easily. And I don't mind seeing him later on because I can counter him out. But I just play 4 just to always guarantee that I'll see him on my 4 or 5 down turn.
Yeah.
See, my thought was like maybe you drop the 10C Kaido for the Sabo. Like, how often did you see? Did you play the 10C Kaido at all during? Like, how was that card for you in the tournament?
Yeah, so day one, I literally never played him. I just start him every time.
So that's kind of where I'm at, and we're seeing more and more lists like evolve with no 10 drops, with no big cards. I want to say, was it second place? That the in EU
Europe,
that did not
right,
have the 10C. Yeah. And so,
So
like,
in
it seems like
the first place had 0, but second place has 2. But I would say in Top Cut, it won me a lot of my games in day 2. So I'm gonna just chalk it up to not seeing it enough day 1. And I was in the finals as well. If I saw him any of the 3 games, it would have changed so much. I think I might have been able to sneak game 1 or 3 if I saw Tenka's Kaido at all.
Oh, that's so true. Okay. That is so true. Because there was now I think about it, like going back, I thought this was a lot of fun about the list was, or about the matches, excuse me, were that you guys were pretty much like not attacking one another, not just starving each other, you know, and forcing your opponent to see the necessary card in order to go wide on the board. Which, speaking of which, shout out to Jonas for seeing 3 seeing 3 of the in every single match. It was, oh my god, Ohm Holy. Yeah. Ohm Holly. I was like, dang. I was like shocked that, you know, one of the matches he had searched it, so it wasn't that shocking. But the other 2, I was like, dang, he's crushing it over there.
Yeah, Jonas did reach out to me. He's like, yeah, sorry, like I got like a little bit lucky there. And I'm like, dude, it's like luck is like when preparation meets opportunity. Like you can go against like a inferior player or like a worse player who probably sees exactly what Jonas sees, and he might not have won. Like, it's what you do with what you draw that like really matters. So, like Jonas, like props to him. Like he like got the hand he was dealt and just crushed it.
Oh, he played fantastically. Like no doubt about it. There was I think the only thing that like the only mistake, actually, you know what, this is a great question too. I would say the only mistake that I noticed was the turn that he swung 6 and you countered out with Sabo. Unfortunately, that was it was like you meant to use, or you should have used a 2K, but you went with like a 1K. That was the only mistake I saw, and I was like, oh, that's really unfortunate. Just like,
that's the only mistake. I can list like 20 mistakes I did.
I'd love to see it. I'd love to hear it.
I'll probably do a video and then like go over it, because that's a lot of what people have asked, like what my mindset was throughout it. And like even without looking at the replay right now, there's like 20 mistakes I did probably. Like I played terribly. Like that's not a good representation of my play. Like, I'm gonna make excuses, but I don't think that's a good representation of how I played. But yeah, I like so disappointed in how well I played. But at that point too, we were having a good time. Like we were listening to the concert in the back, like the speakers were in our room, and then like even during the game, we were just kind of laughing, back and forth, like talking about each other's plays. Like Jonas, like one thing that he did, like he kept looking at triggers, and it kept freaking like the crap out of me. I'm like, dude, I can't tell whether you have a trigger or not. Please stop doing that. And he's like, no, I'm gonna keep doing it.
Dude, I remember I did that. I did that at a local tournament. It was for like the top 4. It was like semifinals of like a manga Sabo, or not a manga Sabo, manga Soge King tournament. And I was playing Katakuri at the time. This was back in like OPO3. And I would pull up triggers. It was like a Strusen. And I would sit there and I'd be like, and I would just, and like my opponent was like, dude, what do you have? And I was like, no trigger. It was so stupid.
Like I would look at a trigger and be like, oh, how many cards do you have in hand, when it's like a Heenan?
Yeah. It's honestly, those mind games they're very real. They're like 100% real. You know, when you're playing some of these, you know, extremely high stakes games, you know, it's tough to, I feel like the toughest part for me is to realize that at the end of the day, you are playing strategically, you're trying to play the game accordingly, but you are also trying to play those mind games. Like, asking cards in hand at very specific times is crucial. You know, that might force your opponent to counter out or not counter out because of specific, you know, actions that your cards might potentially do on play. And it's like that. I love that. I just love the aspect of the game in that matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But,
So,
excuse me.
well, no, I was just gonna say. I mean, you probably arguably, probably not debatable anymore that you're the most decorated NA One Piece player. You've had just an insane amount of success, and placing second in nationals is absolutely insane. What would you say? Like, what would you attribute to? Like, what are a couple things you would attribute to just the overall consistency that you have within this card game?
Uh, it's hard to pinpoint one thing. Like one, you have to be like good at the game. Like two, like you have to prepare a lot and have good playtesting partners, have good friends to talk the game with. Like I feel like most of the times I improve not because I play the game, it's because I'm talking like theory a lot. Like one thing I like to do is I like to watch videos instead of playing. And then when I watch videos and I see like a play where I find is weird, I screenshot it, send it to my friends. It's like, would you guys make this play? Or like, am I crazy for thinking this is better? That's like one of the ways I learn. But honestly, I think the thing that has been the biggest key to my success is that I don't treat this like as a stressful environment. Like I don't treat it like win or nothing. Like it's if I lose, then like it's not gonna like bring me down for the rest of the day. I treat it as like if I win, that's just a cherry on top. If I lose, then this is the game overall. And that helps me kind of like not get into these slumps where if I'm not doing well, like there's probably like a 2-3 month slump where I wasn't topping at all. But like I was fine with that. Like I had like a regular life outside of that I can like pay attention to, and that it wouldn't affect me, and it wouldn't make me want to like dedicate 24 hours to figuring out why I'm not and like stress myself out. So like just taking it easy, treating this like a game instead of like an obligation was like one of the big keys to me continuing to try to improve at the game, staying at the top and consistently topping well.
Dude, I
That's
love
awesome.
that.
I mean,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, like that's just great representation of how to like really enjoy the game and appreciate the game too. The fact that you and Jonas were playing for first place, and y'all are like
Having a good
bantering
time.
with one
Yeah,
another, and
bantering back and forth.
can you imagine? Like this is like a high stakes game. It like to hear that y'all two were just kind of having fun in the moment and enjoying the moment, and just talking about each other's plays, like that just brings a smile to my face. That's just like.
Yeah.
You would think, because I mean, dude, I've played like round 5, and I'm not playing against the craziest opponents. I'm not in the brackets that you are, and yet these people are like dead serious. And I'm not trying to say there's anything wrong with that, but they are just like you would think they're in $1 million poker match or something like that. And like I'm very much the same way. Like I like to enjoy it. I like to have fun. Like like there's sometimes a line where you try and keep a poker face because you don't want to give any tells or reads. But at the end of the day, we're here to have fun. We're here to enjoy ourselves, and to hear like that's what your approach is towards the game is just like it's just so refreshing and awesome to hear, man.
Thank you, yeah.
Yeah. I will say though, as far as having a good time and not having a good time, how about we talk about some of the best and worst things of this national event?
Oh boy. Oh, well, I don't want to take Jackson's whole night up here. That's I'm sure Jackson's got other things to be doing than going over the laundry list. But yeah. No, but that's fair. I think there's some things to touch on with that.
Yeah. What would you say was the worst thing for you, other than like probably being there so early and then not doing anything for hours on end?
Yeah, I would say like I don't mind like the tournament structure. Like I understand like judges got a job, the venue has like restrictions or whatever. I think the biggest thing was probably communication. Like throughout the day, I was really wondering like, is our top cut 64 or how many rounds are we doing or that kind of thing. Just knowing that is like 90% of our concerns really. Yeah, it might suck that we'll stay there at midnight, but once you tell us we will, then it's okay. We'll deal with it. But not knowing how many rounds, not knowing even top cut, like I didn't find out till probably like round 5 that there was going to be a top 64 cut, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I guess just knowing communication, I think is probably the biggest thing that like I was really concerned about.
Sure, that I would imagine that'd have a pretty big effect on your preparation. Just like your mental preparation going forward as to what to anticipate. And in some ways, like if you knew, okay, we're playing, 9 rounds, 10 rounds day one, as opposed to, like knowing that number kind of gives you something to like, pace yourself for. So, how did you feel like? One of the big complaints I heard from people that got the 2-round bye was that they still had to be there and what was it, like 8:30 in the morning, and their first match wasn't until, what was it, 2:30, almost 3 o'clock. Like, how did you kind of like, what did you do during that down? After talking with you, I kind of guess you got on the phone and like you were watching videos and things of that nature. Like, was that downtime like something that you feel like had any kind of impact on the rest of the day for you?
Yeah, for sure. For me and for friends, I had friends who went to go get food. I had friends who went to like get drinks at a bar. Like, I feel like once you're there, you're kind of in a competitive mindset, and then once you leave, whether to get food or something, you kind of like drop that mindset. That's
Mm,
why I tend not to leave the venue whenever like I have a tournament until the day's over. Like, I usually don't eat except like if my friends bring me food or if I have snacks in. So that's why I stayed there the entire time. Like you said, I was just watching videos or playing games or just walking around, catching up on my friends and seeing how they were doing. Yeah, so it was unfortunate that we were there required to get there so early. Honestly, it wouldn't have been a problem if we just got there, skipped 2 rounds, and then started playing. But I think since there was such a big break and such a big delay, that made it seem a little bit bad. But otherwise, I wouldn't mind getting there early, even if I wasn't playing.
sure.
Yeah. I know that I know a couple of my friends quite literally had to they quite literally had to have one person that was a spectator or a visitor, I can't remember which one, but literally run out and go and grab them hot dogs from those hot dog vendors outside. And then they would bring the hot dogs in and they would just munch on that like in between rounds and stuff like that. I was like, dude, this is like a team effort if you think about it. Like
Right.
trying to get up to, some of those top spots like without having your friends or even even like acquaintances that are like, oh man, I'm about to drop from the event. It's like, dude, can I throw you like $10? Can you go get me like a bag of chips and a water or something? Like, I'm dying out here, and yeah, it really is a team effort. God bless friends out there that helped everyone
Yes.
out. Yeah.
So outside of all the stuff that kind of didn't go so well, what was outside of? I think winning second place is probably the most favorite part of the whole trip for you, obviously. But
Just a
outside
little
of
bit.
that, like, what would you say that's something that you really enjoyed about the tournament or the event in general?
I love that it was part of like the Bandai Card Fest. I
Mm,
think just walking in and seeing all of the display and then seeing the stage was awesome. And then just the people they brought, like they brought the singers for some of the theme songs.
mhm.
And then I like the stage was awesome. I kind of wish it was more utilized for the tournament. I understand they have
Yeah.
other stuff to do, but yeah, like just playing on like the backstage and seeing like or not seeing, but like hearing the noise of the crowd. Like I couldn't hear anything except whenever the crowd would get loud. And that would always happen when you want to hit the trigger or something. Like I wouldn't hear any words or whatever, but it let me like it made me feel kind of good. It's like
Yeah.
you're in a coliseum, and then like people are cheering, and then it made me feel it made me play like a little bit more like in a better mood. So I wish that like they used the stage a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all the only thing. But other than that, the venue was great. All the exhibits were great.
I agree. The exhibits were fantastic. I feel like I got one of the most iconic photos ever just off of like that Gear 5 Luffy
Oh, I was gonna say you
card.
and me in Hello Kitty
Yeah.
room,
Oh
but
yeah. Of course.
but
That
I
was what I
mean,
was gonna say.
yeah, I
Sorry.
guess Gear
Yeah.
5 too. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's
No,
fine.
Gear 5 was a close second. That's my bad. Yeah. But no. I think it was really interesting. Like I don't know if you're. I mean, I would imagine you're probably aware by now. But yeah, there was like close to 4,000 people watching your match on Twitch.
Oh
Like
wow, yeah, I
yeah.
wasn't aware.
Oh, you weren't aware? Yeah, there's like close to
No.
4,000 people watching y'all's match on Twitch. It was insane. Like between the end of I believe it was Digimon, was
Yeah, Digimon.
yeah, Digimon was right before One Piece. During the break, like everyone was just sitting there, like, "Where's One Piece? Where's One Piece? Let's go!" Like, and as soon as y'all popped up, it was like it was go time. The entire like Twitch chat was losing their minds. Everybody was like so hyped, so ready, and man, I mean, I will say this as far as some of the organizational problems that the event had. I will say, like as a whole, from an experience of going to an offline event, getting like all of the different displays, how they were doing a lot of the like scavenger hunt and whatnot was really fun, minus the lines. The lines sucked, but like I think as a whole it was really fun. But the best thing for me at any of these events is just getting to meet people, like going around, seeing someone, getting to say hey, and like for example, you and I meeting in person for the first time, super cool, man.
Yeah, we got a selfie too. That was awesome.
Yeah. And I, technically speaking, met FTC for the first time.
That's
Oh
fair.
wow.
Yeah, we had never met in person, but we were in spirit. You know what I mean? It was-
Always.
Awesome.
Jackson,
Yeah.
did you find that you were a pretty recognizable face? Were there a lot of people coming up to you and like introducing themselves, or just wanting to meet the man, the myth, the legend? Because that's one thing with card games, and like kind of my complaint with not having a stream is that there's, we have like personalities within other card games in
Yeah.
which like when people like stream or they do well in tournaments and those tournaments are being aired to where other people can like put a name with the face, that only builds the brand and builds the recognition and so on and so forth. Whereas One Piece, unless you've attended regionals, you might have seen some of the streams, this and that. I feel like this was such a great opportunity to give people like yourself like a tremendous amount of exposure and recognition. And the fact there wasn't a stream was kind of disappointed in the fact that I wanted y'all to get as much spotlight and as much recognition as possible because y'all have worked extremely hard to reach the spot where you're at. All that being said, do you still find yourself to be kind of, like a quote unquote household name within the One Piece TCG when it comes to people just walking by and be like, hey, it's Jackson?
Yeah, I think like I mean I don't want to sound like arrogant, but yeah, like I did have it was surprising me how many people walked up to me. A lot of them either like follow me on Twitter or my Patreon. Um, and I'm not sure how they recognize me because I'm just a regular looking Asian guy. Like they probably think everybody's just me. But I think the most humbling part was in like after like I made top 4 or 2 or whatever, like people started asking for like autographs for the Sakazuki leader, and I was like, I have
Oh,
not practiced this whatsoever. I'm so sorry, but my autograph is gonna be terrible. And then after I signed it, and then it's like the ugliest handwriting you ever seen. I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, send me your address. I'll send you a better one. I'll practice at home.
bro, you're telling me I didn't get a Jackson Huang signature on my
What are
Sakazuki
you
leader?
doing, Ian? What are you doing?
I'm dying inside right
But
now.
technically, the tournament was wave one.
Oh,
Yours are gonna be like post
Oh.
errata, Jackson Wong.
The blue
I'm
bottom
getting
right
I'm getting post
Yeah.
errata. This is
Post
garbage.
errata. You missed wave one, Jackson Wong.
Oh my God.
Sakazuki signatures, bro.
I'm gonna cry right now.
Yeah.
Wow, dude, that's and I thought that I was a smart individual, and I didn't get the man, the myth, the legend to sign my card. I'm disappointed in myself. Unbelievable.
Well, that's all. That's awesome though, Jackson. I mean, that's got to make you feel good. I know, like
Yeah.
Ian and I, as content creators, when we get people come up, it's always like a very like, such a sincere like appreciation we have towards people that recognize the effort that we put into these things. So the fact that again, like, what are your thoughts? Like, I'm not here to like bash on Bandai, but like when you heard there wasn't going to be a stream, because you're obviously someone that I would imagine wants to build a certain level of branding and recognition. The better that you get, the more accolades you receive, you become more and more of a name and more so of like not a brand per se.
Right.
Like, how disappointing was it to you to hear that there was only going to be finals for the stream?
Yeah, I was like, I mean, I didn't think that I would be on stream most of the time, so it wasn't just for me. But like, I saw what happened in Europe, and I saw like the streams there, and people going crazy. People started recognizing faces or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, if you point me out, like some European like top people, I'll be able to point you out because I watched your stream. And I was like, I was really jealous that didn't happen for us. Not just for like me, but for like any topping NA players, because
Yeah.
Bandai's also missing out on like exposing their game to other people. Like I saw like 5,000 people tuned in for Europe. I'm like,
Yeah.
if 5,000 people tuned in for One Piece, then there might be people who either get into the game or get more into the game and like want to be up there. Because definitely one of my goals is like to be on stream and like be kind of like a familiar face.
Well, I'll tell you this: you're gonna be known internationally come March. Like you will literally be known internationally, and I could not be more proud and like happy with the fact that it's you and Jonas representing North America. You guys are not only like, I know you were just saying a minute ago, you're like, I don't want to come off as like being cocky or narcissistic or anything. Dude, I felt the same way. I did not think that I was going to have as many people as I did come up and say hello to me, and it literally made me, I felt like a mini celebrity for a little bit. I was like, dude,
you sure to hear him, Jackson. He came back to the Airbnb and I had to listen to this guy for an hour.
Oh, shut up.
just go off about.
I was so
this
happy.
and this and this, and then like signature that, and I'm just like, all right, Ian, all right,
Dude.
yeah, slow down, buddy.
I
slow
was
down.
so happy, man. Like somebody bought one of my playmats and came up and asked me to sign it, and I was like, dude, I mean, it's so cool. It was an amazing experience, man, and I can't even imagine what that's going to feel like after you are put onto the world stage. Like genuinely, you guys, like I said, where I was going with that is that like you were talking about, no, I don't want to come off as narcissistic. Dude, you guys are like two of the most humble people I've heard talk. Like you are so respectful, you're so humble. Dude, you already know that I know this, I'm very self-aware that I'm not like, I know for a fact I'm not one of the top players. I like to think that I'm getting there, right? I'm slowly but surely working on my gameplay, my deck builds, and I want to be able to compete with the best of the best eventually. And for you to even say, you know, like when we played matches or this, that, and the other, you like, or you've watched some of my games on stream, you were like, dude, you play well. You do make small mistakes here or there, but like you play well. Like you have what it takes and stuff like that. And it makes me feel like, dang, all right, this guy, like, he's not just gonna, you know, put people down for you know, trying to get their, you know, the best of the game. And I genuinely think that, dude, everybody's gonna be like, Jackson Hoang, let's go. Like,
I hope so.
in Japan.
Yeah, my fiance was watching the stream too, and then she messaged me like after, I think it was when the announcers were like, "Oh, who wants Jackson to win or who wants Jonas to win?" And then like my fiance texted me, he's like, "Wow, you got fans." So I was like, "Oh." I was like, I didn't even know.
Oh, everybody was going off. Like, I think it's because, and no offense to Jonas at the time, but I think that more people were aware of who you were than Jonas at the time of the finals. So I think everybody was just like, oh my God, Jackson, let's go, you know? And I also think that there's a large community of yellow haters out there.
More the Saka haters?
Right? No. Saka, no. Yellow, yes.
There's definitely some Saka haters, though, for sure.
There is. But
For
they
sure.
can hate all they want. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool, though. And man, I'm just super excited. Like, I personally don't know Jonas that well, but just having seen some of the interviews, as well as like some of, you know, how he carries himself and talks about the game, I really couldn't be more happy that it's you two guys representing North America.
Yeah. I didn't know Jonas much before this. We talked a little bit, but from all the interactions I had with him and everybody that talks to him, he's like one of the most humble players ever. And I'm excited to be able to go to Japan and represent NA with him.
Dude.
Yeah, and I want to reiterate that to have y'all too. I mean, Jackson, you and I have not had the pleasure of actually having a full conversation, but from everything that Ian shared with me and just in discussing with you now, and we actually had a friend that was staying in our Airbnb, an Austin local, CJ. I think he was Gene under the official roster. We call him CJ. Played against Jonas. It was the Anil mirror match, and he had nothing but just amazing things to say about Jonas and his personality, like just overall. And to have y'all two be the representation for NA to go over to Japan, like I don't know if we could have picked a better representation, or not picked, excuse me. Y'all earned every last bit of that. That's not how it all had. Y'all earned every bit of that. But like, what great representation we have going into Worlds. So,
thank you.
Cheers to that. Now, I don't want to get too far ahead. And if you don't want to release it, or you know, you can no comment this. Do you think you'll be taking Saka into Worlds as well?
I think with the results, like I said, like everything has won. Yellow, purple, Sakazuki, everything has won. It's gonna be really hard to pick a deck that you think would be good into that tournament. Unlike the finals, where you know you're gonna expect a lot of Sakazuki, a lot of yellow. So pick a deck that either beats those or are those. Heading into Worlds, since there's such a wide variety, I think everybody's just gonna stick with what they're good at. The worst feeling is to, you know, make it to Worlds with a deck and then suddenly decide to switch a different deck and then not do so well. Then you're gonna regret ever like changing things. It reminds me of that experiment where, you know, if people regret it more when they change something. If they just keep the status quo, then they don't regret it as much.
Well, I'm an old man from Texas. We have a saying that says, "You dance with who brought you," and
that's a good way of putting it.
You to Worlds, so you know, dance that dance, brother. Ian, I know what you want to say. I'm gonna let it slide. But hey, my old man self couldn't help. I couldn't help it. You dance with who brought you,
I
brother.
love it. I love it. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. Do you think the deck's gonna pretty much stay the same going into you think there's really, because we were talking about like a lot of the Sokka builds are almost one for ones. Do you see there being any kind of tech changes in that deck, or you think it's pretty much stuck where it's at?
Two
I
Sabos.
can definitely see some stuff changing. I
Yeah.
don't know what specifically. One thing that matters is that like not all the representatives have been filled out. So once we see like
True.
who makes it from Asia, who makes it from Japan, maybe there's an opportunity for us to kind of predict where we're going against and then tech towards that. But until that happens, I think that I don't really have any plans to change anything yet. But that's not to say I won't change anything.
You know what's
Sure.
interesting is that, when you said that you made like somewhere close to like 20 mistakes, right?
Mhm.
Do you think that that might actually inherently be an advantage for you going into Worlds, because now people might think, oh, he will make this mistake or he might do that. Is that something that goes through your head to where you're thinking to yourself like, oh, okay, like I'm actually glad that I maybe put on not the best performance, because now I
Mhm.
can really dial in and really surprise, my competition.
I think that like it won't matter at that point because it's just 16 people in the world that made it. Everybody
Yeah,
here that got there probably deserves it. So you're not gonna take anybody for granted, no matter,
right.
how they played, what deck they're playing, or what region they came from. I think everybody's gonna respect it so much that you're gonna treat that as like you're playing against the best player in the world. And that's how I always treat it at like even in round one of like a treasure cup. I'm gonna treat this person I'm playing like the best person or the person to beat in this tournament.
Yeah.
That's how like you don't play down to a level just because you think your opponent isn't that good, or you're not playing scared just because you think your opponent is too good.
That's a
Makes
good
sense.
point. Yeah. And I'm not sure if this has been announced, but I know that it was really nice that they at least announced at the North American finals that we will be in an OPO5 format. That's great. However, do you have any, like, have they announced anything to you, or have they announced anything that maybe I'm just not aware of, that how many rounds, because I know it'll be 16 players, but how many rounds? Because like, will this be like you play a best of 3 in a top 16, or is this a best of 5? Maybe in the finals. I'm not sure.
That's a great question, and that's
Yeah.
something that I'm probably most curious about. Because I would
Mm.
hate to go to Japan, play a match, potentially lose my first round, and then not play the rest of the tournament because I
Yeah.
traveled like
Oof.
16 hours to play 2 games.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ideally, like I would love like either like a round robin kind of or group stage where you play
Ooh.
maybe the top two seeds make it, but like guaranteed that we'll play at least like a couple of rounds just so that we can kind of not just go there just for 2 games.
Yeah.
Man, that
That
would
makes
be
perfect sense.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like a group stage, 4 groups, top 2
hmm
players of each group goes on.
exactly.
I would love that, man. Oh man,
Yeah,
I watched some like English Premier League. You know what I'm saying? Or yeah, I'll be watching some championship series. I'm like, our champion leagues. That man. All right, the
yeah.
Do
soccer fan in
you
me.
so I've noticed there seems to be like a somewhat different approach depending on the regions, like Japan, EU, NA, even Latin America. Like there seems to be somewhat of a different approach towards the games depending on the region. Do you feel like going into Worlds, like you're gonna feel like do you feel like you're gonna feel like a difference of gameplay with your opponent, or is it all just kind of like once you reach a certain level, does it all kind of feel the same, or do you feel like play styles come through in opponents depending on regions or anything of that nature?
That's a good question. I think yeah, I wonder it myself all the time because
Mm.
people always say like, oh, people in the East, they play a little more aggressively, or some people say, oh, they play a little bit slower and more
Mm.
control.
Right.
So like, I don't think anybody can put their finger on like how the play styles are different. They just think that the play styles are different. Myself, I don't know either, but I think at the top level, it doesn't matter as much. I
Yeah.
think maybe like at the
Yeah.
average level, like people will play differently depending on region, but at the top level, I think everybody's just picking the most optimal play.
Yeah.
And everybody like will probably play very similarly.
That's
Yeah.
fair. I think one of the things that lead me to kind of ask that question is because Ian and I, we both were big Smoker players, and we know that Smoker won a regional in EU, and we would reminisce like there is no shot Smoker would have a
Yeah.
chance in NA
Yeah.
winning a regional with all the red running. Like Zoro and Law, like there's just no shot that would ever occur. So like our kind of like observation from afar was that maybe EU might play a little bit more slow to allow a deck like Smoker to have success over there. Whereas like NA, hell, we got the Whitebeard leader ban because we just abused the hell out of like really aggro decks, and we like red aggro and that. So I was just kind of curious, like, is that going to translate to Worlds? But I think the point that you make is correct in the sense that once you reach a certain level of competition, like it's either the optimal play or it's not the optimal play, and that's just kind of is what it is, right?
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
think that's why like you can just hide the names and then show the gameplay, and you're probably not gonna know what region it's from.
That's a great point.
Yeah,
That's a great point.
that's super fair. I think
Yeah.
you know what is interesting though, and that I can say that maybe I'm incorrect in saying this. Maybe it's just based off of a lot of the broadcasts that are held for at least the Japanese championship series. It does seem as though the players play a little bit slower, like take their turns a little bit slower. They think out. Like when I was watching y'all's finals, I mean, obviously there's turns that don't take a lot of thought. It's like, okay, play Yamato or play 7-cost Porcelino or whatever, right? It's like, okay, quick, done, right? But there are turns that take a lot of thought, and you guys were like blazing through it, And I was thinking to myself, wow, I remember watching like some of the Sakazuki like matches of the Japanese championship series, and I'm like, they seem so much slower. Like each turn is done slower. Everything's just kind of, it goes at a little bit of a slower pace. And I don't know. It makes me wonder that I really hope that for these games, I genuinely really hope that if they're going to do these matches, whatever they're putting onto the live stream, because it's going to be streamed, that maybe since it's Worlds, don't do a time limit if it's a best of 3. Because I would, time limits are great, but if you think about it this way, like 35 minutes for one match, and then you go to an hour for 3, that's wild.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A lot of games go to time that way, and I feel as though it's really unfortunate. So
we saw that with EU, some really weird overtime situations with the EU tournament, and I won't say like we felt like we got cheated because maybe that's too harsh. But I for one wanted to watch the thing play out, right? Like I wanted to see, because the Nami player, I was like, like there were some things you could have done differently, but maybe if you didn't feel like the constraint of turns or time, you might have played it. I feel like it would definitely give us a different outcome if it was more towards what you're describing, Ian. But then again, we're kind of left with this like dragging on, like where do we meet that fine line between like, okay, we have to have some level of cutoff in order for the tournament to run smoothly.
Well, to be fair, they don't so like for example, if there's no time restraint, it doesn't mean that you can just sit there and take 20 minutes to play a move.
Right.
Yeah. So there will be like slow plays and like potential penalties for stuff like that, but I feel like that's something that Bandai could really capitalize on, is having, these best of 3s or best of 5s and stuff like that, at least at the top level, like for example, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure you and Jonas's match was timeless, right? Like, yes,
It was.
And that's great. I love that. I think that is perfect. And I pray that they do that for the Worlds, because I think I think that makes for a much more enjoyable time, and it does allow players to really think through their moves versus just rushing to make a play because they know that they're at a limit of potentially losing the game. And
Yeah,
Well,
we can
one
only
thing-
hope.
Well, I was gonna say, I think one thing that I heard that the judges were supposed to take note of for this tournament, and I don't know whether it's true or not, but kind of heard through the grapevine that they were supposed to be keeping a pretty keen eye towards slow play for this tournament. Now, obviously, like when you got up to a match where it was, at your caliber, not particularly relevant. But I think a lot of people just have been somewhat conditioned to make those plays in a little bit more timely fashion. I don't know. I'm just trying to find like where the discrepancy, again, it goes back again to like maybe it's a cultural difference approach towards how you play the game as opposed to NA, where it's just like boom, 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 very, very, very aggressive way of playing the game.
Yeah, I had a couple of friends who lost in Swiss to like time restraints too, and like you never want to lose like that.
it's so sad.
But yeah, hopefully Worlds is like different because usually you have time restraints just to have it there, just so tournaments will go on for like 20 hours. But I don't think that'll be a problem for like a 16-person tournament.
No, yeah, and oh shoot, I was just about to say, Did you ever go to time in any of your matches, like throughout the top 60 or excuse me, yeah, top 64?
Yeah, so Swiss, I didn't top cut. Only one of my matches did. It was a Saka mirror, and I feel like we were playing pretty fast too. But even when you're playing fast, you finish a game in like 20 minutes.
Yeah,
But just the fact that you went to game three, I think like that's unfortunate. But I ended up winning in overtime in life. But yeah, even like as quick as you play, like there's always a chance you go in overtime just because it's three matches
yeah,
for 1 hour, which like is wild to me. And like I
yeah,
hope they change that next season or something.
yeah. No
Yeah.
kidding. It's I mean, I understand that they have to have like some form of limit, but
Right.
I do think it's just disappointing at the highest levels of some of the tournaments. Seeing that 35 or 40 minute timer for one match turn into an hour for three. I'm like, what? Am I not mathing correct? I was like, I don't think I don't think that's working out.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, but this is actually a question for both of you, and I'll start with you, Jackson, and same question for you, FTC. What are you guys most excited for as far as like the future of One Piece now that we've been through the first anniversary of the game and we have now done the national event for North America? What are you guys excited for the future?
Me personally, I'm excited that Bandai is recognizing that One Piece is like successful as a game. So they're
Yeah,
doing all this stuff. They're doing worlds. They're doing like uncut sheets. They're doing all these kind of prizings, and they've already announced like season two.
yeah,
So that gives me hope that Bandai is like gonna invest in this game as one of their main products, and
yeah.
it's a really fun game, and like I hope it lives forever. I don't know if I see myself playing forever, but if it's alive by the time I have my kids, maybe I'll get my kids into it.
Nice.
Love that. Yeah, I know FTC's son is getting to that age that he's going to become a One Piece god. So we'll slowly work him up too.
Yeah, it's funny
Yeah.
you say that. I had one of the locals that stopped by because he forgot something at Airbnb, and he got to meet my son because he was homesick. And he was like, "Well, if you're anything like your pops, you're gonna be a great One Piece player." And like, my heart, I was just like, it melted me right there on the spot. I was like speechless. I was like, man. You're first of all, you're hyping me up way too much. Second of all, that's one of the nicest things you could possibly say. So it was very, very heartfelt. I think for me, honestly, like I'm really enjoying the power creep and like the overall like just how Bandai is becoming more and more creative with like what they're doing with the mechanics of the game. We're seeing Gecko, and we've got Sakazuki that kind of plays from the graveyard. We had Lucci that kind of plays from the graveyard, but now we got Gecko coming up that really almost feels like a side deck, so to speak, or a second hand.
Yeah.
And just like a lot of really cool, thoughtful mechanics that are going into the game that you can like the power creep is very evident, right? Like we're very much starting to we're starting to pick up more and more momentum towards the different ways and the different ways that you can play the game. And I think it's nice because it's refreshing, it's regenerative, and it just gives us something to continue to look forward to keep the game fresh and exciting, and finding different ways that you can play. I say all that to say that I'm not a fan of yellow. And I wish that yellow would just I wish we would get this yellow out of the way. So I have to ask you, Jackson, I want your honest opinion on this. What are your thoughts about the yellow archetype?
I do think it's problematic, and like it's gonna sound so biased because I'm
us.
not a yellow
One
player.
of us.
But like when you're playing this game at the high level, you want to cut down on variance as much as possible, and yellow
Yes.
is the color of variance.
Yes.
I'm not saying it shouldn't be any variance, but just like archetype built on variance makes it a little bit
Yeah.
like unappetizing.
It
to play
puts
against.
a sour taste in your mouth, like
Yeah, like I don't mind if I get outplayed.
yeah.
And like I'll shake your hand or whatever. But if I lose because of a last like trigger, like it feels bad.
It's so bad. It's
I love this, Jackson. I love you, dude. Like you are welcome on this podcast anytime, any day, any week. You just give us the word, brother. And you always have a spot here, my guy.
yeah, because I mean
Appreciate it.
this is how I always look at it. Is I say, I hate yellow as a color, right? But I don't hate anybody that plays yellow. I don't
Of course
blame
not.
anybody that plays yellow because, honest to God, the color is strong. It does rely a little bit on variance, but at the end of the day, like you have really powerful pieces that just immediately give you value on play. Like sometimes you want to have, like, for example, a good example is kind of like, well, it's an okay example. Kuzan, right? So you play 4-cost Kuzan in Sakazuki. You kind of already gain value just because the card was played. You get to draw a card. That's actually pretty sick. But you really gain that value from being able to attack the turn after from -4, right? So it's like you have to wait a whole turn, whereas a lot of cards in yellow, you are immediately impacting the game on play, off trigger. You know, you get to cheat out cards that are already are able to produce attacks onto your opponent's board, your opponent's life. It's I can agree, like the way that you said it, problematic, because I think that there are just cards that come out in the future that scare me. But I don't want to get on a yellow rant. I just thought that it was interesting because I have a very similar mindset. I think that yellow can actually be a really awesome, well-balanced color, and I do think eventually it will be. I think that they're going to stop putting out as much of these like absolutely wild triggers, and I think that what they're going to do is they're going to start, one, hopefully adding banish to cards, to other colors. Yeah, we need to see Onami in every single color variant.
Yeah.
Just an Onami, like one card that is Onami. That would be fantastic. You know, the trigger can be different for every color, but it would be, man, that would be beautiful.
I think to Jackson's point, because I completely agree with the points, and you know, Luffy and I are absolutely no strangers to highlighting these things about yellow. But I think for me, and this is not, and like I don't want it to come off the wrong way, because there's no doubt in my mind that Jonas is an absolutely phenomenal player, a great person, extremely skilled, talented.
You could tell by the way he played,
that he got. And so none of it, but I don't feel like yellow, with all the awesome things that the One Piece TCG has to offer from mechanics and gameplay standpoint, I feel like having yellow being the representation of the game is an injustice, to being honest with you, because I feel like there's so many other healthier ways to play the game than yellow. To have yellow be that color that's kind of, you know, running the table and being like so heavily represented. I mean, between Kata and Enel, I mean, I felt like I was just surrounded by a sea of yellow. It was, you know, yellow and Sakazuki. But you know, for everything that I love about the One Piece TCG, to have yellow be like that color, it's a tough pill for me to swallow. So I think we're all on the same page with that.
Yeah, there's there's a lust for me to really find like a deck that I enjoy in every single color, and sadly, I don't think I've found a yellow deck that I'm really thrilled about just yet, because I don't.
Yamato, bro. Yamato.
Oh, what, green or the regular yellow?
Yeah.
I
yellow Yamato.
I don't hate it. I just don't love it. I haven't found like a yellow list that I really enjoy that much, and I'm excited because I think that Black Yellow Luffy in Starter Deck 13 actually looks really fun. I am interested in that list simply because it doesn't look like it relies too much on variance, as well as much as it does on, you know, like the mechanics of black and then using yellows, really niche like cards that have very powerful triggers, and it seems really neat. So I'm excited about the future of that, you know.
You and I could go all day about yellow. I don't want to take up Jackson's time by hearing two grumpy people complain about yellow. So with that being said, I feel like you know, we could, Ian, you got anything you want to close out with in terms of
yeah,
Jackson,
I would love to say that, well, I guess I was going to shout out all the stuff, but I'm going to be honest with you, they're going to be they've been over here the entire time throughout this podcast. But Jackson, if there are any social medias, places that you want everybody to check out, I would love to hear, you know, where should we check you out at?
Yeah, sure. So I'm mostly on Twitter or X at ClydeTCG. I try to like make some informational posts there sometimes, or if I'm just sharing stuff, but usually that's where you can contact me the most. I do have a Patreon. It's the same thing, ClydeTCG, so patreon.com/ClydeTCG, where I go more in depth and try to help people like get better at the game. Yeah, those are mainly the two spots to reach me at.
Absolutely.
Real quick, do you offer coaching for the people? If people were interested in giving you large amounts of money to make them better players, Is that something you do?
So yeah, people have reached out to me like since like I won my first serial card about coaching, and I always tell them the same thing. Like it's not in the cards right now. The reason I do Patreon instead of coaching is just coaching feels like a little too transactional for me. Like it's my time, like my certain amount of time for your money. Whereas Patreon, I can just write about things that I love to write about and like I love to talk about. And that way, like there's also that kind of impact that like if I coach somebody for an hour, there's no real like impact that I had on somebody. But if I wrote an article, like people can read it, people in the future can read it, and then they can look back on it too. So it feels a little bit more meaningful to me. So yeah, no coaching yet, no plans for coaching anytime in the future.
Okay.
I like that.
Fair enough.
Honestly, I like
Yeah.
that. As
Yeah.
far as, uh, being impacted by an article or by a video, I can relate. There was actually, God, and I wish I could actually give him a shout out right now, but there's, I don't want to say that he's not much of a content creator, but the only videos he's ever posted was one Treasure Cup. He posted all 9 matches that he played, and this guy went 8-1, playing as Zoro. And I just went back and watched his matches, and like seeing somebody of that caliber, and he had a camera that showed his hand as well, which was really nice. So I was able to see his hand as I was going through it, and it was like being able to watch his decision making and stuff like that was almost invaluable. And I went back and I watched like some of those matchups multiple times, and that was how I was able to do well with Zoro in a tournament, and then take that to locals and do well and everything. And by well I mean like top 64. nothing crazy, but for me, I'm like, dude, let's go. That's a massive accomplishment. And so my goals for this year would be to get top 32, top 16, get my first top 8. And yeah, I love the fact that you do that. So guys, ladies and gentlemen, check out the Patreon. Show him some love. If you're not following him on Twitter, at least you got to do that, or X, I should say now. Yeah,
It's Twitter.
it's Twitter. Yeah,
It's Twitter.
you can still type in twitter.com. It pops up.
Exactly.
Well, it was a fantastic episode. I really appreciate you. Excuse me. We really appreciate having you on, man. And thank you for the time.
No problem. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you so much. Sincerely appreciate it. Huge congratulations to you, by the way. Well earned, and it's going to be a lot of fun watching your career through this. And best of luck in Worlds. And maybe I would love to have you back after Worlds to kind of go over your experience and give us your thoughts and kind of have a relatively similar discussion after Worlds comes along. I would love to hear from you, man.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully I can do well and then share my experiences there.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, everybody, if you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, check out the channel, and if you're listening on Spotify, we really appreciate you. Other than that, hope you have a fantastic day, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
Peace, guys.
Fantastic.